We are excited to be here with you. I'm going to go through our land acknowledgement. So Alberta Ecotrust Foundation, Sustainable Campus Collaborative, and Strategic Sustainability Consulting operate across Alberta and many cases across North America. We recognize the traditional territory of many diverse Indigenous peoples. This includes Treaty 6, Treaty 7, Treaty 8 nations, the Blackfoot Confederacy comprising the Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani First Nations, as well as the Cree, Dene, Nakota Sioux, Saulteaux, and the Métis Nation of Alberta. So I did want to cover just one quick kind of agenda item. I was recently at the ASHE conference, and I've been corresponding with some of the institutions who are participating in ASHE and STARS, and we found out that they're talking about changes to STARS 3.1, specifically around representation and access. And they're heavily are discussing removing or heavily changing the credits related to EDIA. So, go on to their forums if you have a chance and you're participating in STARS, and let them know your feedback. I know that a lot of our institutions in Canada are really heavily investing in engagement of Indigenous groups and other aspects of that. So it's really important to us. So we would like to see those points continue. So look at that if you can. And now I'll hand it off to Alberta Ecotrust and Jim to take it away. Thanks.
Well, thanks. I'm not sure quite what happened there. So let me just do a quick little one of these. So Alberta Ecotrust, we do operate in Treaty 6, 7, and 8 here in Alberta, and we do like to acknowledge the importance of our relationship with the First Nations and Métis people of Alberta. Alberta Ecotrust Foundation ourselves, we have a vision that we want Alberta to be a place where people and nature thrive, and I think that's something that everybody wants for themselves, their families, their neighbors, their children, and their families. Our mission is to recognize gaps, and we've been doing that lately by putting together a retrofit accelerator program that is funded by Natural Resources Canada's DRE program. There are, of course, a lot of things that retrofits can do for your buildings. I'm sure you're aware of many of these, everything from reducing greenhouse gas emissions, renewal and streamlining maintenance, improving building performance for staff and students, including comfort, and of course, lowering energy and utility costs. And every different organization is going to have different degrees to which they're emphasizing these various benefits that could be brought to your buildings. But of course, we also know that there are systemic challenges. There can be challenges to delivering deep retrofits. These could be systemic within the organization. There might be procurement requirements that make it hard to access certain opportunities. There could be budgetary cycles, and it could be very hard to actually integrate the retrofit work into budget cycles. It might be hard to take these and identify where the benefits are in terms of the capital expenditure and the capital budgets and versus the operational budgets. And sometimes those are very separate processes. And then there might be government regulations and requirements as to what sort of financing or funding can be accessed by the organization. And that can differ from province to province and from institution type to institution type. And then most recently, in terms of challenges to delivering deep retrofits, we've seen the removal of the consumer carbon price. And that means that there's less cost for utilities for the institution, which can be very helpful financially, but it also makes it harder to make the case that a deep retrofit, which would remove or reduce rather the amount of carbon emissions, would be helpful. And so what we'll do is we're going to have a conversation today, and it's meant to help us understand the barriers that you're experiencing. And so also understand how some of these barriers were overcome by the institutions that are going to speak to us today. And so really our conversation is meant to help us understand the barriers in more depth, explore opportunities, and in particular as they relate to the financing piece. So we're going to hear from each of our presenters about their particular work at their institution. And there will be a fair bit of material there that happens to be relating to the technical aspects, but we'll also want to talk about a fair bit the financial opportunities that they found and how they navigated those. And so we'll have some questions coming up right away here. If you're able to go to this QR code, and I really am crossing my fingers that this will all turn out just fine, it's going to take you to a Slido, and we'll have a number of questions. So I'm going to give you a second right now, if you don't mind, just taking a picture of that Slido QR code right on the screen. And we'll go into a pre-panel questionnaire. It'll take a little while to go through this, and I think I'm going to try to run it in the background and see how the questions go. I think it'll take us about 10 minutes to answer the questions and then kind of have a little bit of a look at that. And I will also acknowledge we do have some grade 9 students, I believe, in Ontario. I think it's Bring Your Younger Than You to Work Day, and some of you might be nieces, nephews, and children. And so if you happen to be on the call, we'd love to know how many of you are attending. And so also cue in on this QR code. And the first question is going to ask what area are you coming from? And I did want to find out if we have any, I believe, grade 9 students from Ontario on today's call as well. So Donald, are you okay to read through the questions and interpret the questions as we move forward?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. This is where we cross our fingers and hope it works. Do you happen to have it popped up on your screen as well? On your phone?
I have it on my phone. Yes.
Okay. Let's find out what happens. Here we go.
I think people are probably in the process of putting in their data. But right now, we're looking at 76% of the folks who are signed into it are from post-secondaries, and around 21% are K-12. We don't have any of those job shadowing students yet, but they're getting to their phones. So we have 19 folks who have put in their data. So we have a good mix.
Right. And of course, today, all of our presenters are from post-secondaries, but we believe there could be some really good opportunities that could cross-pollinate to the K-12 industry as well.
Okay, we'll get into that second question. If you can input your feedback there. When trying to complete retrofits, how significant is your capital budget shortfall? Either not significant, large, but manageable. Capital budget is too constrained to do any retrofits, or our shortfall is unsustainable, requiring that we practice reactive breakdown maintenance. So thanks for your input on that. Quite a few people coming in already. Thank you. Let us get 20 people and start to go through it. So we're finding that 57% have a large shortfall, but are working hard to manage to set aside monies for retrofits as part of the plan. So good number of folks who are making some of that happen, and 27% whose shortfall is unsustainable, requiring reactive or breakdown maintenance, and that's not a good place to be. And not significant, we have capital available for retrofits. And finally, 9%, again, our capital budget is too constrained to do any retrofits. We're hoping to help you folks as much as we can. Next question is, common factors can make it hard to advance retrofit projects. Rank the degree by which these factors limit your institution. First, it's hard to get leadership support for campus retrofit projects due to competing academic and research priorities. 2, hard to integrate retrofit projects with operating budgets, capital requirements, and deferred maintenance. 3, the institution prioritizes short payback projects over projects with longer paybacks. And 4, difficulty using unique financing vehicles due to government rules. And the final factor, one of these common factors to make it hard to advance retrofits, is difficulty using unique financing vehicles due to institutional procurement rules. So 4 is around government rules, and then 5 is around institutional procurement rules. So you can kind of pull these up and down to rank them. And looks like folks are starting to do that. Excellent.
Yeah, and you're able to re-rank them if you've, yeah, you can just pull those around on your screen.
Yeah, these are all challenging, and then ranking them. Appreciate your work doing that. It's definitely good to think these through, and we identify the biggest challenges that we face. Oh, just a couple more responses come in. Nice. It's a little challenging question. So with 13 responses in, number one, ranked factor limiting our institutions from progressing on retrofits is hard to integrate retrofit projects with operating budgets, capital requirements, and deferred maintenance. Yeah, just multiple priorities on the facility side. 2, it's hard to get leadership support for campus retrofit projects due to competing academic and research priorities, which can understand it is difficult. 3, institution prioritizes short payback project over projects with longer paybacks, and those retrofit projects often are longer. And then 4, difficulty using unique financing vehicles due to government rules. And 5, the institutional procurement rules are a factor. So yeah, that procurement can be really valuable, but it's ranked lower than some of the more financial aspects. Thanks for your input on that.
Yes, and I think this might be our last question.
I think so too. So does your institution have a campus master plan with clear GHG emissions reduction goals? No, yes, plan is public, and yes, plan is not public or in development. So maybe different status of those, depending on the institution. So with 15 institutions reporting here, we have yes, the plan, almost half, 44% of institutions say that yes, their plan is public. A quarter say no, and another quarter say in development, and 6% saying yes, but the plan is not public. That's great. That's great that a lot of institutions do have that work done, and that few are working on it and deciding whether to make it public. Be happy to work with folks if they'd be interested in considering implementing a plan. Thanks.
Okay. Good. Well, excellent. Thanks, everybody. Oh,
one more. Okay.
Oh, has your institution completed an energy retrofit project to address deferred maintenance? And some of you may have done quite a few, and some might have not done any yet. So yeah, a little bit. I think this is the last question for us. Well, that's really impressive. About 60% of you have had a chance to do several energy retrofit projects so far. And a good number of you are also considering. If you haven't done one yet, hopefully by the end of this event, having heard from Matt, Mary, and Catherine, hopefully it'll help with some of those earlier questions about where would we get capital from and the rest as well. All right. Oh, I think we could do this last question. It's a little bit of a deeper one, and you might not have a lot of information about it, but there are different ways of having financial solutions that help you with that capital challenge. And so some of those things, and you may have heard of an ESCO or an energy service company before. If that is something that you would like to learn more about, that particular type of organization, we can definitely have conversations about that. CIB, Canadian Infrastructure Bank, usually gives out about $100 million at a time. And so not a lot of people are doing $100 million of projects. So there are a number of aggregators out there, these organizations such as Sofiac and Efficiency Capital, that will bring money to get projects together to meet those thresholds for CIB. So you might want to learn about aggregator financing. There are also utility approaches, and sometimes those are funded by CIB or otherwise, but sometimes rather than you running your plants, you might have a utility agreement with somebody like Creative Energy. And so that might be something you'd like to learn a bit more about. But these are many of these are new and many of these are complicated. And if you're not clear about the differences between each of these options, hopefully by the end of today, that'll be helpful. But of course, we can also follow up with you after and even introduce you to some of these organizations, give you a bit more of an overview. Either Donald or myself could give you a bit more of an overview of these options after today, and that might be helpful. And then if you would like a handshake, handover, a warm introduction, we can do that too. So thanks for feedback from 13 of you. And for the sake of time, I'm going to move us into the next stage. So really excited that we have Matt from TRU. We've got Mary from Brock University and Catherine Thorn from the University of Toronto with us today. Each of them are going to present to us information. And what Donald and I have done is we have a Google Doc that we will put into the chat, and then hopefully you can follow along as well. And if you have any questions, so I'll just go put this in the chat. If you have any questions as we go along, there we go. Then you can be referring to this document as we go, and I'm hoping that'll help. So hopefully you can see it in the chat there. And if you click on that, it's the summary of all of the projects, the sort of the Coles notes, and that might help in question period if you're not wanting to have to go back to slide 6 and 3 and 2 again. Donald, I'll just check in with you that is in fact available to everybody.
I will. I see that you put a Google link.
Yes, good. I think that's the one that hopefully everybody can access that in the chat. Okay, great. Thank you, Brennan. I really appreciate your letting me know that. Sometimes this perspective is not always the easiest one to manage. Excellent. So with that said, our first panelist is going to give us a background about Spark. And so this is Mary Quintana from Brock University. Mary, I'll let you take over. And as we're moving along, just say next slide as I move them along for you.
Thanks, Jim. I'm Mary Quintana. I'm the Associate Vice President for Facilities Management at Brock University. I've been at Brock for about 7 years, and the past few have been extremely exciting. So since we have, it's jumping all over.
Sorry
if we
about
could
that.
Go back about 5 slides, that'd be great. One more slide. Thank you. So just for general context, not everyone might be familiar with Brock. We are in the Niagara region in a beautiful UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. We have about 19,000 students. We have nearly $2 billion in infrastructure and about 32 buildings that comprise our gross square footage. Thank you. So one of the biggest challenges that we wanted to tackle with Spark was our deferred capital renewal and maintenance. And that's probably one of the reasons, and I will not get ahead of myself, but we approached it not only as an energy retrofit, but also as a deferred capital renewal and maintenance solution, which was fairly innovative. We had reached a point where you can see how the trend is looking. By 2034, we would have reached a point of no return. When you see a deferred capital renewal and maintenance, or DCRM for short, of 824 million, how do you come back from that? Now you're starting to think about getting rid of some facilities because they are beyond saving. So it became something very, very important for the board on how do we tackle that? How do we reverse this trend? So if we could go to the next slide. The opportunity there lied with, we need to tackle that DCRM. So we identified which of the buildings had the worst facility condition index, or FCI. Also, we identified that we had a high energy use intensity for our campus, but we had at the same time very ambitious targets. We have a target of 75% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030. So it's quite ambitious. So we have a huge gap there. However, there was the CIB funding that we could leverage on for low interest, and we wanted to tackle on that. The way that we approached it, which became really the opportunity, it was not to see them as separate challenges. We did not see we have an energy retrofit to complete, and we have a deferred capital renewal and maintenance risk when it comes to operations and business continuity. We combine them together. It's just one big challenge, one big opportunity, and not three separate challenges. So that was probably the pivotal point for us. The next slide, please. So our solution was then Spark. And you can see that this is something that we started back since 2013. We had some projects, then it really kicked off in 2018 with the renovation we did for our cogeneration plant and the district energy system. We continued by doing BAS modernization, SCADA. Then in the past couple of years, we implemented the district energy system electrification project, which unlocked significant savings and significant reductions using federal funding under the Low Carbon Economy Fund Champion Stream. And that's really where we enabled Brock to take advantage of more. We called it the carbon key because it has such significant savings and opportunities that it unlocked the CIB funding for us with Spark. And Spark is really an agreement between Enbridge Sustain and Brock University. It's an energy as a service agreement that by working with Enbridge as the aggregator for this, it allowed us to put together something rather quickly. We are buying kilowatt hours, not unlike what we were doing before by buying gigajoules of gas. Now we're buying kilowatt hours of energy from Enbridge. And it does address those three big challenges, the GHG reduction targets that we have, energy, DCRM, and also the building retrofits that we're trying to get. Because there is only so much you can do with technology that dates back from 1967. There's a point that you can't optimize it anymore. You have to replace it. And it was a very good collaborative and transparent process. We did have a lot of lawyer time involved, but just the willingness of all the parties involved in getting this done, that was fundamental to where we are right now. And as you can see, that's going to now take us beyond our 75% target. In 2030, we're going to be at 83% reduction target by 2028. So 2 years earlier, and a significant improvement compared to an already ambitious goal. Next slide, please. The benefits of the partnership is certainly the capital investment. The only capital we're going to invest at this stage is for abating asbestos in some of the locations. We didn't want those eroding our initiative. We are mitigating risk. The cost for repairing something that's unplanned can be up to 400%, and we didn't want to have to go to that, so we're taking a far more proactive approach. The FCI, from the first graph you saw, it would be a tremendous blow to the institution if we got there. So right now, we're on track to revert that, and we would be now alleviating that. We would stabilize our FCI to 0.23 instead of reaching the critical level of 33%. Also, the social impact is we are weaving it together with our Campus as a Living Lab initiative, where we have research and learning and education tangled with it as part of our student experience. we're obviously addressing our emissions reduction. And also reputationally, it's a responsibility when you are located in a UNESCO biosphere reserve, literally just in the back of the window, you can see species, and it's sensitive. We are now also advocating for that that site that we are so lucky to be on. And I think that's my last slide.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate the explanation of the background. Next up, we're going to jump to Matt from TRU. And we'll try to maybe 4-ish minutes, and then we'll get to some other questions at the other end as well.
Perfect. Good morning, I think, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Matt Milovick. I'm the VP Administration and Finance at Thompson Rivers University. For those of you who don't know, Thompson Rivers University is about 3.5 hours northeast of Vancouver. We're about a 54-year-old institution. Oh, this looks like the previous draft of the presentation. It doesn't matter. The details are mostly right. So I apologize for the title. I had changed it. Go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about a very specific project that we're doing. It's our Low Carbon District Energy Center system. And we started with this question, the why. So if we want to be fossil free by 2030, what do we need to do for our campus that had no district energy system? Next slide. So here's the how, this is actually the first time I've done a presentation where I actually have construction photographs and not just renderings. So I spent 3 years doing this presentation all over the place, largely on a concept as we were developing agreements and other things, but we're actually coming out of the ground, and this is a photograph of the low carbon district energy system that's coming, that we're building essentially in the heart of our campus. But the solution is what you see in the bold. An electrified low carbon district energy system using a 2-stage air source, water source heat pumping approach. And for the engineers, we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. A couple things to know about TRU before I forget. We're the 4th largest university in British Columbia. We've got about 25,000 students, about 10,000 students on the ground, and another 15 virtually. We were the first institution in Canada to be awarded the ASHE Stars Platinum designation, one of 6 in the world at the time. Since then, we've doubled down and we've earned it again, and I think we're about to earn it for a 3rd time. So we're pretty proud about that. I would say that sustainability is in our ethos. It is a part of who we are. It's one of our stated values, and I think we've been true to it and committed to it. Next slide. So when we were thinking about how do we get to carbon neutrality, we brought along Creative Energy to do some feasibility studies, and we looked at a bunch of technologies, and we used a technology screening. I'm not going to go through it all here. You can see the things that we looked at: backup natural gas boilers, electric boilers, etc., to try to get to a solution that made the most sense for our campus. And interestingly enough, when we redid our campus master plan in 2013, in 2014, we did a bunch of, I call them appendices, but studies. And one of the studies was about, do we move to a district energy system? At that time, the answer kind of was no, would have been a natural gas system. But our thinking changed and evolved in the 7 or 8 years since then, as we started these discussions, because it really became the target for us was reducing our greenhouse gases essentially to nothing. And when we did our last campus sustainability plan in 2022, it was approved, but through the broad consultations, our institution wanted that commitment of carbon neutrality by 2030. As it turns out, we're going to get there a little bit sooner. Next slide, please. So when we looked at those various technologies, and we looked at the levelized cost of energy, you can see that the district energy, the solution that I'm talking about today is the one that ultimately we decided on relative to the others that you see there. Next slide. So here's the technology very generally. So we get our electricity from BC Hydro. It's probably one of the cleanest grids in Canada. I think Ontario and Quebec are fairly clean as well. So for us, an electrified solution makes sense. In other parts of the country, it may not. But basically, we take the heat from the air, run it through an air source heat pump, creates low-grade heat, which we then transfer to a water source heat pump, and then we pump that out to our buildings. And you see at the bottom, we have gas boilers. Those are really for peaking when it gets really cold, and the intention, and when we're currently doing it now, is buying renewable natural gas so that we stay basically carbon neutral. Next slide. Very quickly, the way it works is that so we own the building. So that picture you saw of the building that was being constructed, we own that. We rent it to Creative Energy. They own the technology inside, and they're responsible for the piping network that has been installed across our campus this summer. And you can see that the arrangement is governed by the BC Utilities Commission. I know there's a question later about the financial structure, and I'll talk a little bit about our relationship with CIB and the various grants that we've been able to get both from the province and from BC Hydro. Next slide. And here's the real juice. If you look at our current baseline, we're over 5,000 tons of GHGs. With the Low Carbon District Energy Center, we bring that down considerably. And if we're using renewable natural gas, when we need to use gas, we're zero, which is pretty great. Next slide. Again, and the other thing that's really interesting about our campus is we have a property trust, so we monetize our surplus lands, and part of our design guidelines is that any future development will need to connect to the system, and the more that external properties connect to the system, the better the economic benefits are, actually not only for us but for everybody. I've included an example here of when we attach ourselves to the city-owned recreational facility, what that will ultimately do to the 30-year net present value. Next slide. So we are under construction. This project will mitigate about 5,000 tons of GHGs. We did put it in the heart of the campus for a couple of reasons. Obviously, it's an efficient pipe run when it's centralized, but we also wanted it to be an overt commitment to sustainability. We wanted people to walk by it, think about the things that we're doing, and it really does form that commitment. And it's going to be a pretty building, and it's a conversation starter for sure. And the project is expected to be completed in the summer and will energize in the fall of 2026. So this thing's moving quick. Final slide, I think. I understand that you all like pictures of pipes and constructions and trenches, so I've included those for your viewing pleasure. So that's it for me for now, and I'm sure there's questions later. Happy to take those at that time.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Yeah, that's that's what's going to happen on your campus when you do these kinds of things, and we've all seen that before. So that's great.
Yeah,
appreciate your input.
Okay.
Catherine, with University of Toronto, take it away, madam.
Hi, everyone. Nice to talk to you today about this important topic. Always love to exchange ideas and hopefully inspire more projects to decarbonize and improve energy efficiency. So I am Catherine Thorn, Director of Sustainability and Energy Management at the University of Toronto. My portfolio includes all aspects of sustainability, but a big focus that we have right now is our climate positive plan and putting that into action. So I'll talk to you about our first major leap in that plan, our Project LEAP. You can go to the next slide. So before I get into Project LEAP, I just wanted to give you some context as to our overall climate positive plan. We have a commitment by 2050 to reduce emissions more than the emissions that we generate. That's what we mean by climate positive. And our plan is backed by a data-driven evaluation of what our emissions would be in a business as usual scenario, which you can see here would continue going up, not surprisingly. Our campus is growing quite substantially. And so there are many different measures we have to actually enact under our climate positive plan. One of those is dealing with all of our new buildings. So we have a building design standard that sets the requirements for energy and carbon and other sustainability targets for every single major renovation project and every single new building. They have to be meeting our targets and approved by my office to be built. So that really helps with ensuring that our growth is done sustainably. But of course, we also need to tackle our campus buildings, because at U of T, we have about 100,000 students that we serve. On our main downtown campus, which is the one that I'll be focusing on today, we have about 125 buildings that we own and operate ourselves. And that's about 14 million square feet of space. And many of those buildings are about 200 years old. So we're dealing with heritage buildings, old infrastructure. We have a district steam system on campus. And so to actually achieve our climate positive plan, attacking those emissions and doing retrofits in a major way is a really important part of it. So the next few wedges on this graph that you can see, are attacking that existing greenhouse gas emissions from existing buildings and infrastructure. So you can see we have to do building retrofits. A lot of our greenhouse gas emissions actually come from our district steam plant. So that's where the utility infrastructure and renewal comes into play, as well as the geo-exchange fields. And then we're making up the rest of our target by installing renewable energy, as well as we're actively working with our fantastic faculty to implement new and exciting technologies that we're actually helping commercialize as well. And that'll ultimately get us to climate positive. We're currently projected to hit our target based on our quite complicated model ahead of our 2050 goal. So we'll go to the next slide now, and I'll talk about Project LEAP, which is how we are decarbonizing our campus by about 50%. So reducing emissions by 50% within a 3-year time frame. And this project comprises several different components. It's very large. I have some stats on the next slide, but I'll go over first what are the technical components. So it consists of modernizing our district energy system. As I mentioned, that's where most of our emissions are. So we're electrifying our steam by putting in electric boilers, as well as we do have hot water on campus, both medium temperature and high temperature hot water loops that we're serving with industrial heat pumps. And then we're also using demand management to ensure that as we electrify, we're doing it in a way that we're actually getting very good electricity costs, and also we're not increasing our demand significantly, which helps with both the electricity costs and our existing infrastructure for electricity. Next, there's building optimization. So we're doing deep energy retrofits on our major lab buildings that were the ones that were most in need of an energy improvement and GHG reduction. And that includes a lot of heat recovery. Interestingly enough, it does not include significant envelope measures, because with these lab buildings, we have so much fresh air that the improvements we make on the envelope don't have nearly as much impact as improvements we make on the heating systems. That's where we really drive down greenhouse gas emissions. Just for everybody's reference, because we're located in Ontario, and the electricity grid in Ontario is very clean currently. The impact of emissions the impact of reducing electricity is not so significant on emissions, but the impact of reducing heating is very substantial. So that's what our focus has been. And then the final piece is geo-exchange integration. So we have the largest urban geo-exchange system in Canada on our campus. It's about 368 boreholes, and we have integrated that into our district energy network so that more of the buildings can access that sustainable energy. Right now, we're about 60% of the way through implementation on the project, and on target to complete by 2027. So we're tracking well and excited to have lots of lessons learned, which I can talk about today, that have come from the actual construction process. Next slide. So I promised you some numbers. The impact of Project LEAP is substantial. We wanted this to really advance our climate positive plan, and we succeeded in that. We actually were able to advance our climate positive plan by about 10 years through this project. So we're dropping our emissions much faster than the sort of straight line that we had originally drawn when we originally projected what we might be able to achieve. And that's represented by the yellow portion of this graph. That steep drop is Project LEAP. It started in construction in 2024. It's going to be complete in 2027. The total cost of the project is $138 million, and it'll reduce campus fossil fuel use by 75%. That it translates into an emissions reduction of more than 50%. It's about 46,000 tons of emissions that will be saved through this project. The building retrofits that we're doing that I mentioned, those labs, we're getting an EUI reduction of more than 40% in those buildings. And this was all done based on a positive net present value business case, such that we were actually able to show good returns that are above our hurdle rate, so that our CFO looked at this project and said, oh, you're investing in achieving our goals that are institutional commitments and doing it in a financially responsible way. Great, show me more of these projects, which was a great reaction to get. So we are financing this project. We'll talk more about this through the questions and answers, I assume, but it is financed through a direct relationship with CIB. And then we have a private lender as well, which is RBC. Plus, we do have our own equity in this project too. That's my quick overview. Yeah, and I'll stop there and answer questions as we go.
Perfect. Great. So we'll jump into sort of the panel stage, and then in the hopes that we have a lot of time for questions at the end, we're gonna start with this one set of questions. It's sort of a wide frame question, a set of questions, because we know that it can be very difficult to get a project moved ahead in post-secondaries, especially given the constraints on both capacity, availability, expertise, but of course also competing financial challenges. So what I'll do is I'll just have a couple of questions here. For the first question, maybe I'll just start with you, Catherine. From your perspective, and we'll maybe just take a minute on this. From your perspective, what were the greatest non-financial challenges that you were encountering, your institution was encountering, in undertaking deep energy retrofit projects, and how did you overcome these challenges? So what were the biggest challenges to getting this done in about a minute?
Okay, I'll start with at the beginning of the project. Scoping the project was a huge amount of effort, and that included figuring out what buildings should we retrofit. So we did our own internal analysis, which took a lot of time and resources from our team. And then we went to the market after that and had this long procurement process. We've actually learned from that and are now using an advanced tool that we developed that has a ranking of all of the different variables in terms of deferred maintenance and energy use intensity and carbon intensity to help us choose our next retrofit buildings. And that's actually the basis of our third stage, our third LEAP project going forward. So that really helped. Another huge challenge was contract negotiation. We used a bespoke contract, which in the interest of time I won't go into now, but now we're using a more standard CCDC 14 contract, which is a design build contract that we've modified with supplemental conditions to get the outcomes we want. And finally, actually the biggest challenge I'd say we've had is what we found through construction, which is that our campus is very busy, and it's not actually a challenge you'd expect related to that. It's not that, oh, it's hard to keep the buildings operating while we're doing work. It's actually hard to coordinate all of the different construction work projects that we have going on because we're expanding our facilities, we're decommissioning parts of buildings so that we can move people into new buildings, and then we're at retrofitting those spaces for other uses. So what we found is that dealing with that coordination creates a lot of uncertainty and surprises, which is something that has to be very actively managed and is challenging to do in such a large, busy environment as the U of T campus.
Okay, thanks. So we'll go to Matt kind of in reverse order for you in about a minute. And then we'll get to some of the financial questions after. From your perspective, what were the greatest non-financial challenges? And how did you overcome those?
So I would say that probably getting to yes would have been the biggest challenge, except for this, and I'm putting this out there sort of as a lesson to the group. We've kind of been socializing our campus around all things sustainability for probably about a decade before we popped the question about here's what we want to do, and this is the big one. And I think having the years of socialization of not only with senior leadership, but with faculty, students are quite proud of these initiatives, and our board. And when it came time to say, hey, okay, time to get real on our commitment to carbon neutrality, here's the deal. Everybody's like, yep, we understand it. We get it. This needs to move forward because it defines who we are and how we do things. So I think that exercise of getting your community ready for something like this is incredibly important. And I sympathize with Catherine. We're going through the same thing in terms of construction coordination on site, probably to a much smaller scale, but it's a huge pain. And we did ours in the summer primarily, but it's still disruptive. So those are a couple of things for me.
Thanks. Awesome. And then Mary, for Brock University, yeah, what were the biggest non-financial challenges that you were facing with getting the retrofits done?
We are still underway. We're just starting in the early stages of the implementation of this initiative. But I would say it was finding the right balance of what do we include. So we have a long list of deferred capital renewal and maintenance items, and we know which ones are the critical ones. But then how do we identify a scope that really reinforces each other while also allowing us to address some of the items that are critical but maybe don't have a very attractive payback? Making that combination and finding the right synergies, that was particularly difficult because we looked at everything from renewables to fume hoods, HVAC, AI, many different solutions, and it was not an easy feat to identify the right mix of buildings, of technologies and approaches to implement into a successful, worthy project.
Okay. And so maybe what I'll do is I'll jump to the next question. And I think you've all spoken to this to a fair degree. So I'm just going to change the question up a little bit. When looking to move these projects ahead, there are, of course, institutional methodologies and ways of doing things. How did the institution, it could be the buildings group, it could be procurement, it could be finance, and the leadership, what did they do to allow these projects to really happen? Did they have to change their processes? Did they have to champion things in a different way to make sure things moved ahead? And again, if you don't mind, Mary, in about a minute, did any groups have to make big changes to their processes? Did anybody have to champion things in a particular way?
That was transformational for us because the board of trustees was very much involved. When they saw the numbers on the CRM, they tasked us, you have to find a solution, think outside the box. So we really were keeping them up to speed on every single cycle. When we were reporting, we had to be providing them updates on options that we had explored, and then once we identified energy as a service, then to keep moving forward. So they were very, very involved. I think that was transformational for us into the level of detail. They were asking us, give me an elevator spiel that I can use when I'm talking to people about this initiative. So they were so engaged and so supportive. I think that's one of the reasons why it has been so successful. And the other one is that we leverage an existing capacity, that we are dynamic and organic as an organization. We are risk averse as much as the sector, but we are very dynamic. We're not afraid to think outside the box. And I think we really leverage that capacity and that characteristic at Brock to do something different.
Okay. I think the risk aversion and having with energy as a service, somebody else literally owning the energy systems in your building might make some folks nervous. So maybe at the very end, we can come back to that as a question for us to discuss as well. And then for Matt, you had mentioned a lot of building the case, socializing the case. Was that the major thing that helped you get past barriers?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, our campus, we've really been doing sustainability in a meaningful way, probably since 2010. Our first campus sustainability plan was 2015. We renewed it in 2022. And we have a unique governance structure whereby we have an environmental sustainability advisory committee that reports jointly to the Senate and the board. And that's unique and it's kind of interesting, but it does demonstrate the importance of how we feel about sustainability. So with the plan, and it's available, actually all of our plans are available on our website. It's worth a look because we had that plan approved by the board every time it was updated and refreshed. It's broadly consulted when we review it. And so there were no surprises when we came forward with this type of deep retrofit. But it starts with the plan. We've been true to it. We've had some great successes. We've been acknowledged for it publicly. And the board just got it and our community gets it and celebrates it. And even all the inconveniences with tearing up the campus, people are like, it's the price of progress. We're okay with it. We can be inconvenienced. And that's pretty surprising because every time we tear something up, it just makes people angry.
Right. And I guess if you do it near the engineering areas, they'll be really thrilled, actually. They'll be like, we can finally see this stuff, right? So
Well, yeah, and actually, we've got a trade school and our trades kids are out there looking at the pipes and the wires and the widgets and the machines
Awesome.
and it's awesome. And creative energy is going to open up the data to our researchers as well. So it's kind of cool that way.
Awesome. Okay. And Catherine, any of the the ways that the institutional departments and leadership smooth things out within the development of the project and the execution of the project, any insights you could share?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is a change in how we funded this project because at U of T, we typically had always used our own money. We have great cost of capital, and so it's rare to get financing on projects. But we're both lucky that we have still a fantastic champion in our COO, who understands also how to present things really well to our CFO and governing council in more business terms about why this project makes sense. And a big part of that was going after the CIB funding because it's a preferred interest rate. We have also with RBC, it's a green loan. So being able to show that no, actually, this is a better financial investment and we should change how we're doing things. Our CFO is fantastic as well. So we were able to make that case and go to governing council with a very clear case for why this project should be done this way. And that ultimately allowed us to make the project much bigger and have a greater impact.
Okay. And a really good segue into paying for retrofits. One of the biggest challenges, of course, for institutions right now is overcoming that financing funding barrier for deep energy retrofits. And so each of your projects were really taking innovative financing methods. And so in a minute, I was hoping that each of you could let us know if your particular institution is able to take on debt, what forms of debt are available to you, and how that impacted your approach to funding. Because of course, different institutions and different provinces will have different regulations around that or requirements around that. So yeah, let us know a bit of the background about what you were able to do from a financing perspective, a debt perspective. Catherine, why don't we continue on with you?
Sure. Yeah. So we do have a debt ceiling that we have to watch, but again, we were in a good position for the debt ceiling. So it was really more about internal strategy than a concern. We weren't going to come close to our debt ceiling with this project. And because the interest rates we were able to negotiate were favorable, it made sense and we got the buy-in. We have structured it to be debt heavy. I mean, we have about 18% university equity, and the rest is coming through CIB and RBC. So that allowed us, as I said, to make the project larger and still get a good return on it. And that ultimately drove that 10-year advancement of our climate positive plan, which is so important because we need those emissions reductions now, not in 10 years.
Right.
So it's been a great story.
Okay, awesome. Mary, how about for Rock University?
It's similar to what Catherine mentioned. We also have a debt ceiling that we were very respectful of. So there was no appetite to acquire more debt unless absolutely necessary, and to make sure that our credit rating remained where the board wanted it to be. So we did do our due diligence and explored other models. We looked at bonds, we looked at the interest rates, we looked at what other companies could be offering out there. And really, when you factor in the rate that we were unlocking from CIB, it just became a very feasible model, very attractive for us. So we still did our due diligence, but it became far superior when we looked at it.
Awesome. And then Matt, maybe a bit of a different approach for you.
A little bit, yeah. So in British Columbia, we can't take on debt. The government frowns upon it. So kind of leaves us in with a project like this. Do we fully fund it from reaccumulated surpluses? And if we do that, of course, there's an opportunity cost, because do you really want to build a piece of infrastructure over a new science building, as an example? So we needed to look at it differently. So we went down the road with Creative Energy, and we've essentially been able to off-book finance about 24 million of the 44 million. So we're putting in 20 million of our own resources. They're putting in the additional 24. We'll pay that back through the rates over time. The other thing that we did with the Creative, we were able to secure CIB funding for this project as an aggregator. So they got 50 million for a couple of projects, and so all of our debt through Creative Energy is funded at that rate plus their markup. So this is saving us probably about $250,000 to $300,000 a year, just with the CIB. In addition, for all the rhetoric in our province about green, there wasn't any money from government. And so I grant shamed them twice. They gave me 3 million grudgingly and another 4.5 million grudgingly. And BC Hydro, upon completion, will give us $750,000. In addition, the remaining amount of our equity, we were able to restrict prior to year end for this project. So there's actually an accounting advantage as you go forward, and you bring that deferral into revenue, because you don't attract an amortization cost, so you don't get that expense. So we've been pretty creative in how we've put this together. It's the best way we could have done it, we think.
Okay, awesome. Begrudged money is better than no money, right? And so I love that. Okay, so now the meat and the potatoes, I suppose, before we get to questions, is you may have gone down some different alleys to try to determine what would or wouldn't work for your campus. It could prove interesting to know what some of those dead alleys for your particular institution happen to be. But more importantly, and please do share some of that with us if there's time, but what solution did you ultimately come to, and how does it work? And we got snippets of that already, but like, how does your project work? And Mary, I'm going to go to you first on this one. In terms of energy as a system, with somebody else owning the equipment in your building, I'm guessing that makes people nervous. But that's where you found the best opportunity for your campus. Describe that for us. How does that system work?
So for context, we did look at the traditional ESCO model. We found that even then we still had to put a lot of capital up front to make the project feasible under that approach. As I mentioned before, we also looked at that with energy as a service. We found that even though we did not own the assets or some of the assets, that we converted it into an opportunity and an advantage, because now over the term of the agreement, if something goes wrong, let's say in year 5, a motor breaks down, that's not ours to replace. Now our partner has to replace it because it's
Right.
it's theirs. And also it gives us flexibility. So if there's an equipment, for example, we're looking at installing about 50 heat pumps. in our district energy system to decouple it from the buildings, we only have one refrigeration mechanic. He can't take care of 50 heat pumps. It gives us the alternative. Do we want to increase the number of people, or do we just leave our partner to do the maintenance on those units themselves? So it gives us that flexibility to adequate our operations and maintenance, and also gives us assurance of if anything goes wrong, equipment does fail. We all hear how things don't last as long as they used to, but now we have that backstop that because it's not our asset, we don't have to pay for replacing it if it's damaged or if it fails before the end of its useful life. So
Right.
that mitigated some of the anxiety over not having to own those. And also contractually, we did spend a lot of time making sure that we had clear delineations on this is where the assets end for Enbridge, and this is what ends for Brock. So having those clear delineations, it helps a lot, because then you know what's actually yours, what you are on the hook for, and what others are on the hook for.
And is the contract itself essentially as long as the end of the life of the majority of your equipment, or do you end up owning the equipment? Does it hand over to you at the end that you end up owning the equipment, or do you buy it out or anything like that?
So the implementation will take 3 years, will be done in 2028. And then we do have a term of 24 years over which we will be paying based on the amount of energy that is produced by the assets that are being installed in the next 3 years. So because the contract is for the energy that we're actually being sold, they need to replace those assets. They need to maintain, if necessary, those assets so that they can continue delivering those. And our payments are tied to those kilowatt hours, not to the assets themselves, but to what their performance is. So if the performance decreases, then we'll have to pay less because we're not receiving the energy that we expected. That's the way that it's been laid out in the contract.
Okay, awesome. Catherine, please describe the financial tool that you guys are using in a bit more detail.
Yeah, so we decided that we wanted to do the financing ourselves, which is why we went to. We have quite a sophisticated treasury team and finance team centrally, and then also within facilities and services. So we decided to structure it ourselves, and we had this opportunity to work with CIB as one of their first projects. So we developed the deal around including CIB and then RBC. RBC is actually our senior lender, and CIB the junior lender. Their portions aren't that different in terms of amounts. And then we put in, as I said, the balance of the equity. We still wanted to have performance guarantees though. So that was a really important aspect of this project to us, because we felt that was one of the greatest risks, is not getting the performance expected. And many of our team members have experience of you have design engineers working on a project and you think there's going to be a certain outcome, and then there isn't really great recourse if it doesn't achieve that once it's constructed, and there's a lot of finger pointing and everything. So we developed, I referenced earlier, a bespoke contract, which we've now standardized into a different form of contract, but follows the same principles. We have a performance guarantee, so they don't operate and maintain. We have a partner who does design build for us, and we have a 2-year performance period during which they have to show that they meet the KPIs for energy and carbon savings that have been promised. And if they don't, we have a holdback, a guarantee holdback. So we actually, the other thing we said was the cash can't leave our account, because we don't, if we disagree, we don't want to have to go to litigation to get it back. We want to be holding that money, and then it would be upon them to litigate if need be. And that was, again, driven by a lot of experience over time that some of our team members have had. So that performance guarantee is quite significant. It's enough that they absolutely want to achieve it, and it provides us with a lot of risk mitigation in case we miss some of the targets.
Right. Okay. Now, of course, that sort of bespoke contract is not the same as like procuring and writing out a contract to buy centrifuges and tissues. How was that made? Was that in-house and you just have that much expertise, or did you go to a specific legal team that has that capability of helping you create something that would both protect you and deliver the kinds of services you wanted?
Yeah, so it was both. We have a large in-house legal team. We have a central legal team, and then we also have legal counsel just for our division. So we had a contract that was a U of T contract, construction contract, that was adapted for this project.
Okay.
And then we did also work with external counsel. And then the lenders had external counsel, and they each had separate external counsel. So there were a lot of lawyers involved.
There's a lot of legal. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is why we went to a more streamlined process where we now use, I referenced CCDC 14. It's basically just a Canadian standard contract that gets used in construction. And so that has helped the process. And now we have our standard contract with our standard supplementary conditions that has the performance guarantees in there. And so now that we're doing our third one of these types of projects, we didn't have to spend a whole lot of time on the contract up front. We'll have to negotiate a bit, but the base is all there.
Okay. And Matt, for you, same thing. Your solution is also unique. Let us hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, a little bit similar to what Mary and Brock are doing. So Creative Energy becomes our utility provider. So one of the advantages of that, similar to Brock, is that once we turn the system on, all of the maintenance is their problem, which is great. So it actually, from a facilities operating perspective, we can redeploy those resources elsewhere. The plant itself will be fully automated, so it doesn't necessarily even require Creative Energy to have a body on site all the time, which also reduces the cost. And that's one of the things that we didn't want to be a utility provider, especially when we start piping hot water to some of the residential developments that we'll build on our property trust lands. We wanted a proper utility operator to do that work for us, so we can focus on our core business. So basically, we were responsible for the retrofits in the building, so paying for the capital outlay for that. So we will decommission all of our boilers, so the maintenance of those essentially is zero. So for us, that worked with Creative Energy taking on that responsibility and essentially just billing us monthly. So it's a bit unique, but quite similar to what Brock is doing.
Okay, awesome. Now everybody probably knows this is complicated material, so we all sat down ahead of time and talked about what the questions would be. I'm going to actually, for the sake of time and question, I'm going to merge these a bit, but there could be major lessons learned and recommendations that you have for our audience guests, and there could also be recommendations you have to getting campus work done. So it could be like, what would you recommend to the folks that are in our audience about how you could get this, how they could get deep energy retrofits done on their campuses? And maybe that crosses over with lessons learned as well. And we'll just keep going with you for now, Matt.
Sure. I mean, it's kind of an interesting time, and I know Daryl's comment in the chat about, clean grids versus less than clean grids. And I guess my perspective on this in terms of lessons learned, and I'll start there perhaps, is that I think going forward that all forms of energy are going to be required to make it all go. So renewables, electric from hydro or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, investing in the greenest option that is appropriate for your location or geography or politics is always going to be the right decision. The more efficient you can make your plant, reduce your energy, I think that's the way forward. So that's sort of high level. More specific to our situation, I think you've got to really like the partners that you work with. and to be able to have a strong relationship. And I think Catherine and Mary all had complicated discussions with lenders and partners. And our discussions with Creative Energy were complicated. They involved a lot of lawyers, but they were also willing to hear our concerns, some of the risks that we weren't willing to take on, and they were willing to amend their boilerplate contracts to adjust for our concerns and our unique situations. So if you don't like who you work with, and you're going to get into bed with them for 30 years, you might think twice. So
Right.
really understand your partner, what their interests are, make sure that they align with your interests and your values. And I think that's the first step to a successful project.
Okay. Mary, any advice on how people can get projects really done on their campus, and or a lesson learned, red flags even?
I would say it changes your perspective once you take a different view of the challenges and try to integrate them. I think for us that's been huge, just the ability to not look at deep energy retrofits in isolation, but to look at them within the bigger picture and what it does for our strategic plan, for our deferred capital renewal and maintenance. So I would recommend people to look at their problems not only separately individually, but also to look at a bigger lens, a bigger maybe from an aerial perspective, and see if there's synergies that you can leverage on to tackle more than one. Because when you present something to the board, to your executive team, and it's like, I'm checking all these boxes, and well, it becomes a much easier sell than if you're just trying to convince people to do energy retrofits by themselves. And the other one is one that we have advocated for a while. It's people. Technology and deep energy retrofits, they only take you so far. You really need to continue working on engagement. You need to educate your community, because there is no solution, like what Matt was saying before, that we need all types of energy. But if we also include conservation, the cheapest kilowatt hour is the one that we don't use, and that's with our people. And we need to make sure that when we do these retrofits, we don't forget about the occupants of the buildings, our own communities, because they play a huge part in all of our goals.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. And then Catherine?
Yeah, so I think something that people think about doing a lot is to make incremental change and attack projects like lighting retrofits and such that have a good payback as a starting point. And even there's this idea of quick wins where
Right.
you want to get people on board. However, we took the opposite approach. So we have actually held off on doing, for example, a lighting retrofit, because we knew that we wanted to do this large project and we needed to have a good financial return on it to sell the project. So bundling is my key recommendation. If you bundle the short payback measures with the long payback measures, you get a much better blended payback, or even better, get away from payback and start presenting internal rates of return and net present value. Just gives you more leeway, especially if you use financing. But that idea of bundling applies to both these faster payback measures and longer ones, as well as what Mary's talking about with deferred maintenance and taking a different view of combining two problems to make a bigger problem, make it easier to solve. Because what happens there is that you get value from addressing the deferred maintenance, and you get value from the energy cost savings. So your energy cost savings don't have to pay off as much because people recognize there's value in the deferred maintenance being addressed as well. So that's probably the biggest thing. I would say also reinvest in future projects. So we did get incentive funding as well.
Okay.
And we had to pay for our project up front. So our funding is, as I said, it's through it's through financing and then ourselves. But then we get reimbursed from some incentive programs. So, but it's a small amount, it's 10% or so, but it makes a difference on this magnitude of project. And that actually is helping pay for our next project. So that's already in the budget for our next project, because we'll have that cash in hand for our next project, but we don't have it until we finish this project.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'll leave there.
Okay, awesome. And good thoughts. I mean, we're in the retrofit land, we're struggling to help participants understand some of those things, and sometimes the decision makers really want those quick wins. But if you don't bundle things later, it actually gets even harder to do the hard things because you've taken away all of the financially helpful wins, and you've front loaded them, and then later it's even harder. So we're going to jump into questions, and I know there's a lot of good questions. I'm going to invite my colleague Amy Spark from Alberta Ecotrust to jump in. We have probably too many questions for the amount of time left, and so she's going to do a little bit of directing. So Amy, please go right ahead and pick some of the questions out. We're going to do lightning round though, because we only have like less than 12 minutes. And so we'll do a bit of a lightning round. I try to summarize things as quickly as you can.
Yeah, thanks so much. And thanks for moderating, Jim, and the fantastic content today. I really appreciate hearing all of that. For those that I had the opportunity to work with when I was at Bow Valley College, it's nice to see all of you again. I'm now with the Alberta Ecotrust team. So if you're wondering, if your brain is wondering why that name sounds a bit familiar. So one thing I just wanted to perhaps throw to Donald to speak to, and feel free, Donald, you can let me know if you want me to throw it to someone else. But Daryl's comment in the chat just around bringing this back to the Alberta context and the Alberta grid system, and just essentially what are the opportunities for Alberta institutions given our grid constraints. So Donald, I wondered if you just wanted to speak to the work that you mentioned on the market assessment report that you're working on and just provide a little bit more detail there.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks for that, Daryl. And it's a really tough one that folks in our prairie provinces and Saskatchewan and Alberta, not Manitoba, they're quite good. And I think that the folks on our panel did address it, and thanks for talking to that a bit, folks, especially Matt. Our grid in Alberta is still using a lot of natural gas to produce electricity, but it's cleaning rapidly as well. I mean, we've gotten rid of our coal far ahead of schedule, which was a great accomplishment. And we do have tremendous solar and wind resources, which aren't maybe being used as much as they could. And so the ways that I've encountered folks, institutions that are trying to address that when there's a campus kind of situation, large universities are going to district energy. They're really investing in energy efficiency. As both Catherine and Matt and Mary said, the most cost-effective source of new energy is not using energy. So energy efficiency is a huge actual resource, kind of demand side management. So those are pieces of it. And I think that still ultimately electricity offers a high efficiency in terms of, heat pumps are extremely efficient. Boilers can be very efficient when they're electric. So turning to those types of resources can still get you towards where you need to be. We can't change what our grid is on a dime, and we need a lot of other stakeholders to do that. But the things that we can take hold of, one large institution was considering turning completely to geothermal energy for heating a large campus. So that, there are technologies there that we can consider as well when we can't change our grid or those kinds of things. So hopefully that helps with some input there. Thanks.
Thanks. And we can always follow up after. Just before we go to the next question, I know we're going to go right to the hour. There's great questions. I'm just going to put this up that if people could just grab that QR code, same one as last time. I believe you can do the questionnaire on your own time after, because we always like to have feedback and make sure we're doing well. Amy, what's our next question?
Yeah, so this question just came in for Catherine, so I'll be throwing it to you from Cameron, who's saying, you mentioned that you are addressing demand side management with the integration of your boiler installations. How are you managing your contractually available electricity to serve both maximized electrode boiler loading alongside other campus loads? So thanks for the question, Cameron.
Yeah, so we're actually dropping our electric boiler load when we're at peak demand. So there are a couple of things. One is in Ontario, we have a demand charge that's very high based on 5 peak hours that determine a huge portion of your bill for the whole next year. It's called global adjustment. So during those hours, you need about 120 hours to actually make sure that you predict the 5 hours because it's the grid's peak. So you don't know when it's going to happen. But by not using our electric boilers for the 120 hours, then we don't hit those 5 Ontario grid peaks, which makes a huge difference. We also have a combined heat and power plant. And so similarly, during those 5 peak hours, we also turn on our combined heat and power plant. We actually changed the strategy for that plant from being baseload to now we're just using it purely for demand management. And so that's helping maintain our grid capacity. And so basically we set a limit when we structured this project, and we said, okay, we can't go above this many megawatts, create an operating strategy. And that's what we did. And by keeping, we have enough capacity with our older boilers, even though we got rid of the 30 megawatt boiler as part of the project, we still have enough capacity to be able to switch over to gas during those times.
Thanks for that answer. I just want to give a shout out to, there's lots of positive comments. So if you don't have the chat box open, feel free to open it. That's Stephanie saying this is one of the best panel discussions I've seen this year. So congratulations for the opportunity to see real projects in real campus situations. So yeah, kudos to all of the excellent work that's been happening on this. I don't see any other questions popping up in the chat. So this is a prompt in case you have any burning questions. We'll leave it open for a couple more minutes.
Oh, if you don't mind, I'll jump in with one, Amy.
Yep, go ahead.
Catherine, you were talking a little bit about integrating the deferred maintenance piece into the business plan and getting that as part of your net present. How did you go about that process of convincing people that we could not just look at things in terms of what's the cost and the payback on the energy basis only, which is what almost all ASHRAE level 2, ASHRAE level 3 audits are going to say, put in these ECMs, here's your capital cost, here's your energy savings, have a nice day. How did you create that additional value stack? And who did you have to convince? And or how did you create a value stack to help the net present value of a project like this with a lot of capital expenditure?
Yeah, so I'll speak actually related to, because I think there are different perspectives from I talked about LEAP, which is our LEAP 1, we call it, and now we're moving into construction next year in LEAP 2, and LEAP 3 is on its way as well. It's in procurement. So I think it's helpful to know sort of how we've evolved too. For LEAP 1, with CIB, I do recommend you look at CIB. You've probably heard that already loud and clear through Barry and I. But with those favorable interest rates, we were already able to get a good NPV to do it, including the deferred maintenance in the capital that was being spent. So we were just able to say, and bonus, we're addressing is about $30 million of deferred maintenance capital through this project. So it just further improves our return.
Right.
For our next project, we actually have a deferred maintenance program that is a large deferred maintenance program where we're working on, we recognize there are tough financial times coming, so we're actually working on reducing our risk now. I heard, Mary, you say that our emergency repairs and replacements are about 400% of the cost, which was great to hear somebody put a number to it. But that was basically our communication strategy was, if we don't do this now, this is a big risk, and we're going to pay way more later when we know financial times are just getting tighter for this sector. So we should be addressing it now, and we actually have a large deferred maintenance program that we sort of flipped it with LEAP. We were saying decarbonization first, and we're going to address some deferred maintenance, and that supports the overall project. With our LEAP 2, we're saying, okay, it's a deferred maintenance project. We took deferred maintenance approved budget, and then we layered on, okay, and we're going to add this extra capital to it and get energy and carbon savings. So when we present the business case for that project, we actually say, here's your capital amount. Here's the amount for deferred maintenance. Here's the remaining amount of capital if you subtract the deferred maintenance value. Okay, well, what's our return on that remaining value? Because we're saying the deferred maintenance, you just get the benefit of that risk reduction, and then you can show a much better return on the remaining capital for the energy savings that you get.
Thank you, Catherine.
It's easier when you have
Um,
not like a slide, and we
I know.
definitely presented it in numbers.
You did a great job, though.
Yeah.
There's a quick question here, and I see Matt's already answered it in the chat. So maybe just to Catherine and Mary, are you looking at district cooling as well as heating?
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, heat recovery is a huge part of what we're doing, which includes cooling and heating at the same time. So a lot of our heating actually comes from our cooling. So that's been a big part of it. And we've extended our district cooling a bit because of that. Mary?
We already have district cooling as well. The changes that we're making are the piping because it's already very, very old. It's past its useful life. So we are going to be replacing the main pipe over our distribution system. And we are going to continue using our thermal energy storage as part of the solution to keep chillers off.
Great. Thank you so much. So David, that was your question. If you want to follow up around more information around that, feel free. All right, last question, and then I'll pass it back to Donald to close things off. As a question from Stephanie in terms of the procurement process. So did you qualify your partners and then build your project with them? So just if you're able to kind of high level, how did you work within your public procurement rules?
So I'll start quickly. We actually did a couple of feasibility studies, one with another company and one with Creative Energy, looking at two different solutions at multiple periods. We liked what we had from Creative Energy, and then to satisfy procurement requirements, we went out with an expression of I forget the term, but basically to say, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we want to do it. Is there anybody else out there that can meet these terms and these conditions? And the answer, quite honestly, was no. And so that satisfied government's requirements.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Sure. Yeah, so we ran an open procurement. We did the pre-qualification stage, and then we went into RFP. Ours was outcome-based, so we didn't say, give us this design solution. We said, we want X, so much, we want at least 40% reduction in EUI. In the building retrofits, we want at least 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Tell us what to do and how much it's going to cost. And we had 3 teams put in proposals, and we actually got better results than we expected based on that outcome-based procurement.
Thank you.
And for us, super quickly, we are buying energy. So we're working with Enbridge, and we are buying energy just as we were before, just it's in a different form. Instead of molecules of natural gas, now we are buying energy from the assets that they are installing.
Can I add one thing? I forgot an important part of our process. Once we chose our preferred partner, there was a validation period, a detailed study, we called it, where they had to be within 10% of the net present value that they submitted during the RFP, or else then we didn't have to go forward and we didn't have to pay them anything. So that, and then we signed the contract for the actual design build after that period.
Thank you for adding that, Catherine. I think that's a really interesting step that I haven't heard before. So, all right. Apologies, I know we're right at noon, but Donald, did you want to add anything and close things off?
Yeah, thanks very much. I know that folks are leaving, and please feel free. We're right at time. It's been a really fantastic conversation. I really appreciate your generosity with your time to our panelists, putting together the case studies, being available for this conversation. I think it's been tremendous value to our participants, and we'll be publishing. We've recorded it. We'll be publishing it, and it'll feed into all our conversations. So. Thanks everyone who came, and thanks very much again to our panelists and to Alberta Ecotrust, who has made this kind of all possible by helping fund the whole project. So thanks everybody. Have a great day. Look forward to talking again soon.
Nice chat. Thanks. Bye.
Mary, Catherine, thank you again. And Donald, thank you for so much great organizing and connecting folk.
Absolutely. No, you did a fantastic job of leading the whole conversation. So thanks so much, Jim. Great work.
You're welcome. Wait, see, sir. Take care.
Take care.